Hey, what's up guys? It's Tip. Remember the first time you entered the Dead Mines or Wailing Caverns? How did it go for you? Wait, let me guess.
Bad. It went really bad.
You ran in, you died a lot, you wiped a lot,
Yep.
and you spent a huge portion of your time blaming the hunter for pulling extra packs. Doesn't sound too fun, honestly.
I was actually so shitty at the game, I didn't even know who to blame. Like, I was so bad at the game, I didn't even know how to rationalize my own mistakes by then.
In fact, the vanilla dungeon experience actually sounds pretty horrific, especially on paper, which is why people have often speculated that the fun memories are driven purely by nostalgia. But what if that statement was false? What if vanilla dungeons weren't great because we were young or because WoW was still new? What if they were great because they were brilliantly designed?
Because they were great.
From the morbid dead mines to the lush gardens of Dire Mall, vanilla dungeons were absolutely stunning.
Yep.
Their level of quality was unprecedented for MMOs at the time. But more impressive than their appearance was the actual dungeon system, a system that extended far beyond the artificial boundaries of instanced walls. And like all great systems in the RPG genre, the vanilla WoW dungeon system revolved around one quintessential element: the journey.
Yep. Yep. Check your phone. Wait, why do people say check your phone? Like, what is this phone? Like, I don't even know what the fuck the phone is. Why do people want me to check my phone? I'm confused. I'm actually just... Oh.
Prior to the Burning Crusade, meeting stones in World of Warcraft lacked a famous attribute: the ability to summon party members.
Okay.
Additionally, Warlock summoning portals required 2 assisting party members instead of just 1. This meant that unless your group had a minimum of 3 players at a dungeon's entrance, you were going to have to run to the instance yourself. Sounds simple, right? Well, not exactly.
No, it's not.
You see, back in vanilla, some of the earlier leveling dungeons were located in completely isolated zones, or zones exclusive to the opposing faction. A great example is Shadowfang Keep, an early level dungeon located in Silverpine Forest. If you wanted to run SFK as an Alliance player, you first had to venture through Lochmodon, the Wetlands, Arathi Highlands, South Shore, and finally Silverpine Forest, all on foot. But if you think that sounds boring, I've got some news for you. It wasn't.
It was.
In fact, the journey to the instance portal could sometimes be more memorable than the actual dungeon. This 20 to 30 minute grace period gave players ample time to socialize and meet each other. It also gave groups an opportunity to strategize around their composition before they began a run. And perhaps most importantly, the journey to an instance often catalyzed other adventures along the way, as players would encounter new zones, flight paths, quests, and world PvP during their trek. Talk about bringing a world to life. I remember the first time I ran Scarlet Monastery.
Dude, can you imagine, like, this is peak WoW video, okay? Like, this is what it's about, right? A guy sitting in there, you know, mid to late 20s, balding, talking about how good vanilla WoW was, clips of Lord of the Rings. Obviously, it was a Hobbit, right? But basically, Lord of the Rings in there, you know, some 80s music. Like, this is absolutely peak WoW video. Like, this is what we want, all right? And it's okay. I'm not even complaining about it. But there's a point where you have to realize that it is what it is. Yeah, this is a boomer video.
My group and I literally spent hours fighting the Alliance on that small hill area by the Meeting Stone. We spent so much time fighting on that hill that gradually more and more people would show up until it became an all-out faction war. It was so epic, and it's just one example of the emergent gameplay that can arise from simply having players travel to dungeons instead of queuing for them. And when the PvP slowed down and we finally entered the vestibule, pure awesomeness. I can't think of any other way to describe it. As your group crept closer and closer to an instance portal, the world itself began to change. Normal mobs became difficult elites. Standard caves turned into winding mazes. You even lost your ability to locate yourself on the map, making instance portals a pain to find. With each step towards the dungeon, you felt like you were progressing deeper and deeper into dangerous lands. And when you finally reached the portal and leapt into the swirl of digital cotton candy, the dungeon itself did not disappoint. Immersive, challenging, huge. Each dungeon in Vanilla WoW was gigantic, and more importantly, they were sprawling and seemed to unfold before you like a George R.R. Martin novel. With every page turned, the stakes grew higher, and with each boss kill, the dungeon environment escalated. A great example of this escalation is in Razorfen Downs, a dungeon where you literally begin on the ground level and gradually fight your way up the Spiral of Thorns towards a climactic showdown with Kel'Thuzad Jr.
That's true. No, that is actually true. Holy shit, no, you're right. Like, I used to always do this dungeon. This is one of my favorite dungeons of like, all time. Wait, what's Season 8? Well, why do you guys say Season 8? What the fuck is Season 8? I thought you hated it? No, that was Razorfen Crawl. I hate Razorfen Crawl. I like Razorfen Downs.
This feeling of progression was made possible by the deliberate pacing Blizzard had set for their instances.
Game of Thrones.
You couldn't blow through these things.
Yeah.
Trash packs were simply too powerful, and AoE abilities were few and far between.
Can't win them all, right?
Each pull was calculated and took time, meaning that dungeon runs could take several hours before completion. I know this classical dungeon crawl format may not be for everyone, but dear God is it satisfying.
It was
and more
the best.
importantly, it feels organic. Because dungeons required so much time and effort, most players only ran them once or twice, preserving the authenticity of each experience and preventing dungeons from turning into repetitive spam fests.
Oh, man. That's actually true. Like, not doing the dungeons all the time, maybe that actually made them better. That's like a 200 IQ take. I've never even thought of that. But you're kind of right. I mean, like, Maw of Souls was really good, like, the first 10 times. But whenever I got it to, like, run number 300, I was tired of it. Like, I didn't want to do it anymore. Like, I really was tired of it by run 300, let me say. That's how Final Fantasy is with their dungeons. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the weird things that, like, a lot of people don't realize is that, like, whenever Blizzard does one of these quality of life changes that seems to make sense, what ends up happening is there's, like, all these secondary effects that are actually, like, really bad. And I think this is an example of that.
I'm looking at you, Maw of Souls. In my opinion, no other expansion has been able to replicate the immersive nature of vanilla dungeons. The ones that came close, Cataclysm and TBC, didn't quite hit the mark, although they did share another important quality of the original Warcraft 5
Great minds think alike.
Difficulty. If you've ever had the privilege or pain of hearing a vanilla player talk about classic instances, chances are you've heard them rave on and on about how hard they were. I'm not sure hard is the best adjective to use here, but they were certainly punishing. And if you reference dictionary.com's definition of the word difficult, I do think vanilla dungeons fit the description. In truth, the Dead Mines was not easily beatable. Zul'Farrak did require skill, and Blackrock depths could not be cleared without some form of planning. It wasn't uncommon to wipe in a dungeon, regardless of your level or skill. And while you could argue that classic dungeons may not have the sophisticated mechanics of today's game, their difficulty came in other, less tangible ways. A good example of this intangible difficulty was the distribution of mobs throughout an instance. Trash packs in vanilla were often tightly grouped, increasing the likelihood of unintended chain pulls. Additionally, mob patrols were far more common and could catch even the most vigilant groups off guard. On top of that, most pulls required some...
How many of you guys ever did a dungeon and there was like a mob that was like right here, and there was your caster in the back and the mob's like this? And you're thinking, I really hope he sees it, but you know that he's not going to. And it's just getting closer and closer, and then, oh, aggro range, and he fucking aggroes it because he wasn't paying attention to the fucking pat, dude. Every time that shit made me mad. Like, there's nothing that makes me more mad than whenever people pull extra trash in a dungeon. Like, I'll be honest, like, that's like my trap card. That's what really fucking makes me mad.
It's a waste of time. As tanks lack the mitigation required to take on multiple adds. But trash was just the beginning. The dungeons themselves were also a challenge. While it may be hard to believe today, Wailing Caverns was widely regarded as a giant maze back in 2005.
I got lost.
The Sunken Temple? More like the Drunken Temple. And of course, there was the legendary Dark Iron City known as Blackrock Depths. What can I say about this dungeon that hasn't already been said? It didn't even feel like a dungeon. It felt like an actual zone. It was a complex labyrinth filled to the brim with secret passageways, special events, and nearly 20 different bosses. Its replayability was also huge.
It's a lot of bosses,
Due to
holy
its sheer
shit.
size, you could literally run BRD a dozen times before coming close to seeing all of the content.
That was me.
Truly a masterpiece.
That was me. It took me a long
history.
time to actually finish
I could
it.
go on and on about the non-intuitive ways that the vanilla 5-mans could challenge you, but I'll save the good stuff for another video. The important thing to take away, especially for those who will be playing vanilla for the first time in Classic WoW, is that you should expect wipes on dungeon runs.
Nope.
And that's okay.
No wipes.
It's part of the experience.
Nope.
And if you ever find yourself getting frustrated during a run, remember to relax, man. Because the rewards of running vanilla dungeons made it oh so worth it. Rewards are important in any game, but more so in MMOs. Take away the incentives to tackle a piece of gameplay, and players simply won't. Luckily, vanilla 5-mans did not have this problem.
Oh, is this a soloing video?
There were so many reasons to run dungeons. I'll just list some of them for you here.
Oh my god, I watched this
Reason
one
number
too.
1, loot.
There it is.
You could make the case that every WoW expansion has had great loot drops in dungeons, and you'd be right.
No.
However, no expansion's dungeon loot have been as relevant or as vital in world play as vanilla's. Because the world itself was so dangerous back then, and because leveling took so long, a dungeon gear upgrade was almost invaluable. An upgrade meant you could stay alive longer while grinding in Ravenhill Cemetery. It meant less time wasted drinking water as a mage, and regardless of your faction or class, it meant a higher probability of surviving a dreaded world PvP gank in Stranglethorn Vale. Additionally, some pieces in vanilla leveling dungeons were so good that they were actually prioritized for raiding. This meant that players had an incentive to return to earlier dungeons for specific loot, making 5-mans incredibly lucrative. Reason number 2, 5-mans made you.
No, that actually was really good. I like that about vanilla WoW, where it wasn't like how like things overlapped. You'd use some things in MC and AQ. You'd use some things from like level 50 dungeons. I thought this was like always the coolest shit, where you could take items that you got from level 50 dungeons and still use those to raid. Now maybe I'm like dumb for that, but I really thought like the amount of like interchangeability that you had and the fact that you were able to find things in different places and take those forward really made the game fun.
Better. Seriously, vanilla dungeons actually taught class mechanics and raid concepts. One of the most important concepts introduced in 5-mans is threat management. In literally every single raid tier,
no, it's not, because I pulled aggro all the time. It was fun.
Vital to a raid group's success. And
I used to only attack bosses from the front. I said I ain't no bitch. I don't need to hit him from the back. I look him right in the fucking face and I hit him. I never would attack from the back. I would get parried all the time. No, really, I did that until like Burning Crusade or like almost Wrath. Like for the majority of Burning Crusade, I still did this. I look him right in his fucking face, I hit him. I ain't no bitch. Have you reacted to the latest BFA cinematic? Yeah, I have. I watched it at the beginning. It was really good. It got me hyped for BFA, and that's pretty hard to do. Watch this video about you called Leaked Exclusive Classic Screenshots. Oh, I don't know about like that. That's not really about me, dude. That's why you never got far in Classic? No, I was still top DPS. I mean, like, there's like 3 buttons, man. Like, I actually I cared about my performance. In WoW, I cared about my performance until somewhere in, like, Cataclysm or Mists of Pandaria. Before that, I actually cared about my character. And I cared about, like, not being a leech and a detriment to my raid. And then by the time, like, Mists of Pandaria came out, or even Cataclysm, now, maybe Mists of Pandaria, I really just stopped giving a fuck. And then I just decided I'm going to do what I want.
Is just the beginning. Due to the punishing nature of dungeon trash, players are forced to dig deep into their spellbooks for abilities that could potentially prevent wipes. That means warlocks learned how to best use curses, hunters learned how traps work, and druids learned how to make the most out of their massive toolkit. I can't think of any expansion whose 5-mans taught players more about their class than vanilla.
Look at that damage, dude. That druid deleted him.
Meeting the community.
That's the most important part.
This is one of the things I really miss about the classic era, specifically vanilla. Because of how long it could take to put together a dungeon group, players were indirectly forced to meet and network with fellow faction members on their server. Finding a dungeon buddy or two could save you so much time that coming out of your shell was just worth it. The result of this increased social interaction is a term I think many of us miss dearly in World of Warcraft. Community. Say what you will about vanilla dungeons, even the harshest of critics cannot deny the sense of community that the 5-mans helped build. These are just a few of the many incentives designed to reward.
There were people that I did dungeons with that I raided Karazhan with. We came up through the ranks together. And it was fucking beautiful.
Players for completing 5-man content back in the day. I could go on, but I think by now you're probably sick of hearing me talk, so let's wrap this up. That memory you have of your first Zul'Farrak run, it was real. It's not nostalgia. Vanilla dungeons were immersive. Vanilla dungeons were challenging. Vanilla dungeons were rewarding.
Yes.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why they were great. Thank you for watching the video, guys.
Yes,
if you liked what you saw, sub it up and stick around because we got more coming. A special thank you to all my friends on Patreon.
Absolutely
Honestly, without
true.
you guys,
I mean, that's obviously absolutely true. Like, I mean, let me see. I want to see if I can find something here.